Mr. Kalyani needs no introduction. He's chairman of Bharat Forge. He's with me here to talk about what he thinks is going on with India in Davos. Mr. Kalyani, thanks very much for your time. Great to have you here.
Pleasure.
I just want to start by asking you, a lot of Indian CEOs that we've spoken to are all very pumped up and enthused about the India presence here and the pull factor, as many are calling it. Is it really true? I mean, are you sensing that?
You know, India has always had a fairly strong representation, not just in numbers, but even qualitatively in terms of the CEOs that attend here, from the biggest companies to technology companies to entrepreneurial-driven companies, and now even some startups in the technology space. So I think that's the good side of the Indian presence in Davos, and it does create a pull factor. And on top of that, we now have this Make in India lounge, which earlier was the Indian Adda, which is quite popular. Now I don't know whether it's popular because the food is great or because they end up meeting a lot of business guys, but I guess it's both. Okay. Because it's become a place where people meet each other, network. So I think overall there is...
But what's the response really to Make in India? Not the food, but to the campaign and
I think the response to Make in India, you won't see, you won't see that directly in Davos, because Davos is a little more about...
when you sort of push that as a campaign, the flagship campaign, the message here, what are the questions that you get?
I think, fundamentally there are 2 or 3 big questions which have been coming on and off for the past some months, and earlier than that for the past few years. And I think the first big question is, what are you going to do about retrospective taxation and things like that?
That's been taken care of now, though.
Well, I think the government has expressed its intention to take care of it. So I'm hoping that in the budget you will see some things on this. But it needs to be fixed, and that issue needs to go away.
So that still comes up.
Yeah, it still comes up in conversations. It still comes up. Then the second issue that comes up is, what are we doing concretely to fix infrastructure and infrastructure bottlenecks? Because large companies from Europe, from North America, from Japan, I mean, for them to deal with an infrastructure where Indian companies can deal with, we don't. I mean, I keep telling these companies that we don't have a problem with the poor quality of infrastructure. Yeah, our quality of infrastructure is not as good as yours, but we don't have a problem with it, because you can. It's not stopping your process or your supply chains or anything else.
But doesn't work for them.
Yeah, but somehow mindset-wise they're used to a far more efficient infrastructure. So I think that is an area where the Prime Minister has also laid tremendous emphasis in his overall directions and what he wants to do. So I think that's the second. And the third is common to all of us, whether it's Indian investors, whether it's foreign investors, is how do we just make ease of doing business better?
And that's again, of course, been something which.
So I think decision-making processes. How long does it take? Sometimes decisions are made and then they get reversed. So there are issues of this nature. Now, these are not issues specific to India. I don't think we need to get very embarrassed that this is something specific to India. I mean, these are issues that are there in many parts of the world.
Sure.
Except now that the world is also becoming a competitive place for investments. It's becoming a competitive place to where people will put their money, where they will generate growth. So it's a pretty complex kind of an environment. It's not a simple, straightforward environment like it used to be there 15, 20 years ago.
So retrospective sort of changes, infrastructure bottlenecks, and ease of doing business, right? 3 things broadly.
And these are the things that the Prime Minister has repeatedly talked about and assured investors, assured countries that he has visited that these are things that he is tackling. So I think it's pretty much on the top of the agenda.
So the budget needs to be a big one, you think?
The budget needs to have clarity on some of these issues, especially the taxation-related issues. The budget needs to take the reform process further. So I think we will see. I mean, the intentions are there to do it. It's only a couple of days more, and we should have the answers. But, you know, as an Indian, I think I've never been more optimistic than I am today under Prime Minister Modi's leadership. I think he has raised the bar for India as a country, which also means that he has raised the bar for all of us in terms of, you know, where we need to climb or take our business. And he's raising the bar for external investors. For them, it's a different perspective. He's telling them that it's, you know, the size of the economy is going to be much larger than you thought. And these are the things we are doing to make that happen. So I think, you know, serious players who have been serious about India, but who have kind of, let's say, applied or slowed down the speed a little bit or applied the brakes.
They're going to sort of
push
on the pedal again.
I think they're going to start pushing on the pedal again.
Okay.
And this is what we need. And I think, you know, once these things start happening, you will start seeing investment, the whole investment cycle coming back. And with a little bit of luck, the growth rate in our economy will go beyond 6%. And, you know, that whole thing will start generating a cycle of growth, surpluses and investments.
For Bharat Forge, which is, I mean, you know, one of the darlings of the stock markets back home, it's done phenomenally well. I mean, who would have thought 2 years
But, you know, Bharat Forge is a very good example of Mr. Modi's mantra of Make in India. I mean, this is exactly what we do. We make in India genuinely products with Indian technology, but for the world markets. But we make it in India with Indian employees, Indian technology, Indian people, Indian plants. And we have phenomenal market share around the world, and we are growing. So I think this, you know, this Make in India.
Is the world market slowing?
You know,
I mean, for you, for example, for Bharat Forge.
You know, the world market is extremely large. First of all, I mean, if you look at...
But Europe, for example.
Now if you look at Europe, Europe has become very volatile. In some segments of the European market, things are slowing down. In some segments, they are getting actually better. You know, with the euro getting far more competitive to the dollar, the German industry or the European industry, which is export-oriented, is doing extremely well all of a sudden. So, you know, there are pluses and minuses.
America is doing very well.
America is doing extremely well.
That for you now is the real, I mean, sort of...
no, but, you know, we supply to... we are seeing a lot of growth in America. We are seeing some growth in Europe, even though the European market is a little fragile and a little volatile. We are seeing growth in Japan. We are seeing some growth in Southeast Asia. We are even seeing some growth in Brazil, a market which is really not growing. So, I think, you know, the bottom line is, the way we view it, India is a highly competitive place today for manufacturing. I think people don't realize how competitive we are in manufacturing. We are extremely competitive in manufacturing. Second, this whole Make in India business is going to take this whole process of Indian competitiveness and technology-intensive manufacturing to the next level. And this is what we really need. Because right now, we don't have the laws, the rules, or regulation to do mass manufacturing with let's say, unskilled labor. Because we don't have the labor law reforms and those kind of things in place. But where you got technology, you know, you do high-tech manufacturing. Indian engineers are as good as anywhere in the world. I mean, you look at...
But will that create jobs? I mean, one big focus of Make in India is to actually create...
Of course, it will create jobs. It will create jobs.
Thanks very much, Mr. Kalyani. Appreciate you coming in. Great talking to you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you.